Hello again. The South African National Taxi Council says it's fighting a losing battle. According to the council's Thabo Moyane, the continued fuel price hike would wipe out nearly 20% of their profits by the end of the year. Tonight, the fuel price will reach new record highs.
Affecting us also on the N1s, on the toll gate. The toll gate are going up twice a year. Recently, they have gone up. So if you look at what the profit we were doing last year this time, our profit have gone down by 10%. There's nothing we can do because remember the petrol is going up. If you look from now, every month the petrol is going up. Until December they said the petrol will be going up. So for now, what we have been gaining, or the profit that we have been taking home, it will go down again by 5%. It means at the end of this year, we'll be doing minus 15% of our profit.
Well, fill up your tanks this afternoon. Petrol and diesel going up by over 2 rands come midnight. 2 rands a litre more you'll be forking out. There's been widespread criticism from various sectors of society, including the general public, of yet another fuel hike. The organisation Undoing Tax Abuse has slammed government, saying that clearly tax revenue shortfalls have negated government's ability to continue with the relaxation of the fuel levy. As we all know, an increase in fuel means an increase in most other aspects of our daily lives and economic activity. Let's get some analysis now. I'm joined by Economist Lumkile Monde and the CEO of Outa, Wayne Duvenage. Lumkile is joining us via Zoom, and Wayne is with us in the studio. Lumkile, let me start with you. This rising cost of the fuel price is not boding well for the economy, from the sense that people are already under pressure. Their pockets are literally empty, and we are a consumption-driven economy. So people will have very less to spend, and the transportation costs will affect other activities. I mean, how bad are things?
Then we were naked. Remember, the core of every country is universal access to transport. And South Africa is dismal on that. Remember, the railway network has collapsed. We don't have an efficient bus system that gives our commuters that freedom to move from point A to point B. And thirdly, we have got the tax industry, which is subsidized by government. However, it is very expensive for ordinary South Africans, therefore trapping many South Africans' mobility and rendering them basically trapped in areas where they live. So this hike really has got a huge impact, particularly for many, not to mention those already trapped, because all our food is moved mainly by trucks to the point where we buy, but also because it's not only about the petrol price, it's about the food, it is about the rates that municipalities are charging. So comprehensively, South Africans are in a very tough position where infrastructure is collapsing, where law and order is collapsing, and government is nowhere to be seen. So this is going to be very, very hard for South Africans.
This hike, Wayne, is going to be very hard on South Africans, as Lumkile says. That you've expressed yourselves as Outa that, you know, the government is not doing what it's supposed to be doing around this fuel issue for quite some time now.
Yes, for a number of years we've been saying the government has pushed these levies well above inflation, in fact averaging 9% per annum over the last 14 years, where inflation has been around 5.5% over the same period. Look at the retail levy as well, 13% increase. So, and we see this across government, local government, rates and taxes go up above inflation. So the receiver is, and the Treasury is leaning heavily on all sectors of society. Citizens are paying far more tax than they should in every respect. And when it comes down to petrol, as Lumkile says, we are captive to fuel-based and smaller vehicles. We do not have a structured public transport system. We've moved cars and cargo off rail onto road. all of this is going to have a detrimental impact and effect on inflation. And we are stretched as citizens. Everybody is stretched, and businesses are losing money now, big time, and collapsing as a result of these costs.
Yeah, and the businesses collapsing is not good for the economy. Lumkile, I was hearing somebody commenting that, let alone the fuel price, if you're a small business and you're facing load shedding, those two factors combined are likely to kill your business, Lumkile.
Well, then, I mean, the Small Business Institute has been saying this to the Minister of Small Business around how to circumvent some of the challenges. Particularly, a number of small businesses then are located in urban and peri-urban areas or in our rural towns, some of which have been managed or mismanaged, should I say, by the ANC. And therefore, our businesses have not only been hit by failing and falling infrastructure at local level, but also the ESCOM issue that now put here, as well as the transport. So really what we've seen is the shrinking number of businesses, therefore a shrinking number of employment opportunities. It's not surprising to us why our unemployment is at 35% or about 46% extended. So we are in a very difficult period. And we all know, not for South Africans really, there's only one option, is to have a new government in 2024, because this one has got no plan how to fix, nor a commitment to do things that South Africa requires during a crisis period.
Now, let me bring you in here in terms of the fuel. So many things are being said around it. For example, we know what the Russia-Ukraine war has done to the world, and driving up the price of Brent crude oil to over $120 at some point, US dollars a barrel, but also depriving the rest of the world of much-needed wheat, like us here in Africa and stuff like that. But the fact remains, there are certain levers the government can pull. There are certain metrics that are within its control to make it a little bit easier for us in terms of the fuel hike.
Yes, look, one of them, the most direct one and easiest, is the fuel levy. And I just need to remind people that in 2008, the petrol price, the international oil price, was at $132 a barrel. We're at 120, it's not far off that, but less than that. But our petrol price was only 10 Rand per litre, just over 10 Rand a litre. And the reason that is that it was around 3 Rand for the taxes, combined all of them per litre, and our Rand was a lot stronger. So to Lumkile's point, if we had a stronger Rand, we shouldn't be floundering around the 16 Rand to the dollar. We really shouldn't be there. We're punching well below our weight as a country with the prosperity levels. We've pushed these levies and taxes too high, and now we sit with this perfect storm. The government can reduce the levy. They've done it for the last 3 months. They've shown that they can do it. But if they don't want to go there and they want to increase those levies again, then we have a serious problem, and we will continue to see petrol prices between 25 and 30 Rand. It was just 4 years ago that we cried when it went over 15 Rand a litre in April 2018. Just 4 months ago, 5 months ago, we cried again when it went over 20 Rand. It is now in 27 Rand. We are in
That's
serious
almost 30
trouble.
Rand. That's almost 30 Rand. We're in serious trouble. We've just been joined as well by another economist, Azar Jammine. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for joining us at this stage of the conversation. Welcome to Today on ENCA. We're just talking about the impact of this new fuel hike coming from midnight on the economy. And things are not looking good. And we're also thinking here about what government could be doing. Some of these things have not been said before. Have been said before, Azar, like the fuel levy. But nothing is really happening. We got a bit of a relief of 1.50 Rand over 2 months recently. That shows that things can be done. But in your view, the bigger impact here, what would it be on the economy of this fuel price hike come midnight tonight, Azar?
The impact is fairly dramatic, certainly on the inflation rate. One is looking at the inflation rate now increasing to close to 8% over the next couple of months. And that is the highest it's been for decades. And that is likely to erode the disposable income of households quite significantly. But it doesn't end there. The danger is, and the Reserve Bank is going to be totally aware of this, the danger is that this huge fuel price increase, which is going to increase the cost structure of many businesses all over the place, will be used by such businesses to justify increasing prices of their own goods and services. And that is what the Reserve Bank is very wary of. And so it will be, what we're likely to see is not only the erosive effect of higher fuel prices, but also on top of that, the likelihood that interest rates are going to rise quite a lot further than had been expected a few months ago because of this. So you're going to get the double whammy of higher prices, but also higher interest rates, on which will bear down heavily on those who are indebted. So it's not a pretty picture. The only consolation is that we are not alone, that most countries in the world are facing a similar kind of constraint. And I don't know what the solution really is. A temporary one, certainly, and that is for individual producers of extractors of oil to start pumping more money into producing more oil. Now, for many years now, the world has been trying to dissuade investors from investing in more oil supply in order to generate greater carbon, greater cleaner environment. But in the process, we haven't seen yet the big swing away from fossil fuels to renewable energy and electric products.
It's a tough place to be in currently, because all of us are using, the bulk of the world still, using fossil fuel powered vehicles and stuff.
Right. And we haven't made the transition yet fast enough.
We haven't made the transition at all, and there have been attempts to do so. But as you are talking there, Azar, I'm thinking, if, for example, as you say, there's going to be less disposable income per household, that's going to impact on economic growth in the country. I mean, because we know that consumption drives GDP in this country, Azar.
Yes.
It's undoubtedly going to impact on economic growth in this country, as much as the intensified load shedding is also going to do. But it's a global factor. And on top of all this, you're going to have lower global economic growth, sharply lower global economic growth for the same reasons. And that will in turn impact on our ability to export to various parts of the world. Yeah, well, so it'll, you get a knock-on effect.
Yeah, I don't want to ask this question now because there's two economists in this discussion, Wayne. We are outweighed here by these two economists. But I wanted to tell our viewers later, are we headed for a recession? But don't answer that now. Don't answer that now. Let's come back to the issue of fuel and the fuel hike. Wayne, from Outa's perspective, I mean, as a civil society organization, when you hear this kind of scenario being painted and stuff, and the pressure that you as a lobby group, as a civil society organization, you are bringing on government, where should the focus be for us? What do you think? Where should this country really, currently, with this hike coming up now, where should the energies be spent on?
Well, as Azar says, we're not alone. It's not like we can wish away the Ukraine war. I think the focus area should be for government is to tighten its own belt. Government leans heavily on society. We believe it is bloated. There's a lot of maladministration, misspending. So if you're asking us if government is going to pass on some saving to society, it can tighten its belt and save the 2.8 billion rand it loses on this R1.50 reprieve every month and show us how to do that. Now we know that there are perks in government. They've just given themselves an increase. I mean, when the government delivers, right down to local government, all the rates and taxes have gone up. We've got to stop this insatiable desire to just keep increasing taxes and increasing levies by above inflation. That mindset needs to stop. They need to go to zero-based budgeting, cut and trim the fat so that we can live within our means. If we're asked to, as society, to live within our means, we look at our government and say, you too must live within your means, and stop leaning on the people all the time, because this cannot continue. If you look at the increases in taxes and levies over the last 15 years, it's exorbitant, and we've got to slow this down.
slow down the levy, slow down the tax. Lumkile, what else can the country now, government should be focusing on in the wake of this ongoing price hikes in fuel, which are going to be with us for quite some time, because that Russia-Ukraine war is not ending anytime soon?
I mean, Wayne has put it very clearly that we need to look at tightening our belt. But by tightening our belt, it means taking those hard decisions about restructuring government, but also where we can make some money from some of the state assets, which are not delivering efficiently. We look at those to try and raise funding from selling some of those state assets. But more importantly also is to finish the recommendation of the Zondo around bringing all those that are still in government, that are serving us and are mentioned there, to book. I think if they do that, even though there'll be hardship among many South Africans, but at least a government that takes responsibility and accounts will be the government that I think many people want, a government for the people.
Yeah. Azar, are we headed for a recession?
I think there's a very good chance that we are going to have a recession, both globally and domestically, as a result of this. There are many indicators, especially the fact that short-term interest rates in many parts of the world rose above long-term interest rates for a period of time. That is usually seen as a harbinger of recessionary conditions. The big question on analysts' minds at the moment is, how severe will the recession be? Will it be a hard landing or a soft landing? Will central banks decide to increase interest rates very aggressively in order to beat inflation, or will they get cold feet the moment they do start increasing interest rates and start withdrawing from the process? But then the net effect will be inflation will remain higher for longer, and the recovery will take longer in coming.
Okay. So Lumkile, as an economist, recession is ahead. I'm sure you are also exposed to the similar kind of analysis and data that Azar has got. Just share with our viewers, what does a recessionary economy look like? What would it be, its impact on us?
Well, I mean, already we have seen that the contraction economy between 2012 and 2022 has been huge. Our economy is much smaller today than it was in 2012. So it means that many South Africans have become poorer. So if now we've got 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth, South Africans will undergo or experience a recession, meaning that the economy is shrinking further and further. I still think that the commodity cycle is still going to support somewhat. We've seen that the demand in the world is not as bad as we see with other goods and services. So being failed by Transnet, we're unlikely to exploit that. That's why I think that even though the commodity sector and export manufacturing sector could help us, but the fact that Transnet is not able to help them may push us into a recession, which will mean fewer jobs, fewer returns, and fewer tax revenues, and therefore more tax hikes in the future.
That sounds disastrous if we headed that route. Okay, we are about to conclude, gentlemen, our discussion here. Wayne, fuel levy, yes, it's very clear that it could be a lever that the government can pull. Midnight is not far away. It's going to be biting us from tomorrow as we try and put petrol in our cars. What else should we do now going forward? You said government must cut its cloth accordingly. Look at where it can cut. Can't just call on us as citizens to tighten the belt. They also need to be seen to be tightening the belt. What else? Just your final thoughts as we conclude.
Greater efficiency throughout government. If you look, for instance, just at the road accident fund, that's another R2.18 on the fuel price. That has been run away. In 1 year, they increased the road accident fund levy by 48%. Because they throw money at the problem instead of fixing the problem. Now, we need to compensate road accident victims, of course.
But you're not calling for the scrapping of the road accident fund completely. I mean,
fix it.
Look how we drive in this country. And how we kill each other on the roads.
Well, deal with it. Deal with the money that is allocated allocated to the MECs in the provinces for roads, for transport, make sure that finds its way into the road so that we can repair and maintain. Those roads are death traps right now on the regional roads in many parts of the country. So we're just looking for efficiency in government. We're looking for professionalisation. And we want to make sure that taxes are not wasted.
You know, there was a Defend Our Democracy campaign conference at the weekend in Boksburg. Were you there?
Yeah.
One of the issues that came up was exactly what you've mentioned, the professionalization of the public service that needs to serve the people better. Exactly. It might bring efficiencies. Azar, as we conclude, I mean, it's going to be very tough. We're having a tough outlook. I mean, in the short to medium term, what are the prospects? I mean, what was the GDP in the first quarter? 1.9%?
Yes, it was 1.9%, but we're looking now at negative growth in the second quarter. And if we have a further quarter of negative growth in the third quarter, then officially we will have been in recession. And given the stage 6 load shedding, you know, the chances of that happening, coupled with the likelihood now that the repo rate is going to be increased by 0.5% in 2 weeks' time, and again by another 0.5% in September, chances are quite significant that we're going to have negative growth for 2 consecutive quarters.
Yeah, and as Lumkile, you were pointing out earlier, that means less jobs. Small businesses are going to be dying in that kind of environment. But I mean, we don't know for how long this can last. I mean, for as long as the war is going on, Russia, Ukraine, we know about the oil prices, the impact on that. But our plan, I mean, if the government doesn't restructure and reform bring in some of the reforms, then this might last for a very long time. Lumkile?
So what's going to happen is that we expect that because of statistical factors, that in a smaller economy that will have shrunk due to recession, we may have some recovery given the base where we're coming from. So I think going forward, even though we may still have hardships continuing due to the continual in the north, we may have some recovery at some stage because statistically numbers will be different. That won't mean, however, that South Africans now are suddenly much richer and have turned the corner. I think South Africans are in a long-term decline until we have got a different world economy. We have got a different government that focuses on managing and delivering on the needs of South Africans by investing in infrastructure, allowing private sector expertise and finance to invest in areas where the private sector can, whilst government with civil society, private sector do the rest to move us forward. But I think South Africa has entered a period of decline, which is going to take a huge effort from South African to turn it around, despite the global environment that may improve in the future.
Thank you very much. That's Lumkile Monde, economist, and Azar Jammine as well, as an economist, joining us here this hour with Wayne Duvenage from Outa with us in the studio. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and your insights. We are entering a period of decline. It's going to be tougher and tougher going forward. Brace yourself. Do your little bit wherever you can as you tighten the belt.